Aleph. Mitzvah Shem Mitzvahs Loisa said the first prohibition is Shaloi La'alis Machshava Sheyesh Alekav Zulosi Hashem, not to even entertain the thought that there's a God besides the Eibishter. Shenemar Lo Yelcha Alekim Acherim Alpanai. You have no other gods aside, say, in place of the Eibishter. Shaloi La'asis Pesel, not to make a statue. Lo Yasa B'Yaldinana, you shouldn't make it by hand for yourself. Lo Yasa for yourself. Lo Yasa Lo Acherim, shouldn't make for you. Shenemar Lo Yasa Lecha Pesel, shouldn't be made for you. Shaloi La'as Gimel Shaloi La'asis Avodah Zarah Fil Lachem, not to prepare such a statue even for others. Gods that are masecha. Masecha is a way of welding, of pouring, so to speak, melted lead, etc. Dalet, shloilas is tzur, so not even to make beauty, just for beauty purposes, not for as a deity. If they're not served, they're not. Shnamar lois hasan into elkei kasa. Not to bow down. Even this is a universal way of serving, even though that's not the way this Avodah Zarah serves. It's a universal way, and you're not allowed to bow. For sure, not to do it in the way that this Avodah Zarah, like Baal Pa'or, was to make over there, etc. They would pass their son through, or their children through the priest would take them through fire. That the oiv, they would speak out of their armpits, they would talk into their armpits, make sounds, and they would predict the future, etc., say different things. They would take a etzim of a certain bird called yadua and put it in their mouth. Not even to give it thought and to follow it. Yud al Hakim Matzeva monument that they would gather around and serve. Shnamar Loisakim Lacham Matzeva. Litan Abed Maskas was a stone that they would bow down on. Shnamar Baban Maskas Loisitin Vatzcham. Shlolita Elon Bamigdash, not to plant a tree, any type of tree in the base of Migdash, not even on Shadra. Shnamar Loiti Sita Lacha Ashera Kol Eitz. It's the Mitzvah Hashem Lekach. Yudal. Shloli Shava Bavad Zarah, not to swear in the name of Avodah Zarah. Lo Evda, whether you're swearing to those that serve it. V'lo must be an Oisim Ba, and not to have them swear in their God's name, should not be mentioned because of you, or you should, as well as you shouldn't mention them. Not to persuade people Yidden to serve Avodah Zarah. As well, there's a specific warning: someone that persuades people to sin with Avodah Zarah. Not to. This is a maces. Ladiach is a whole city. That's Ir Nidachas. Here's lahasas is one, maces is for one person. Shnemar, but maces lo yasifu lasas kadavara. Yudzayin loyla hoivus. Maces you're not allowed to love the person that commits. Shnemar lo yisayva lo lazav asina la maces. There's a loisa say not to allow to let go of the hate for the maces. Shnemar lo yisishmaelo. You test shloila hatzal maces, not to save him. Ella oimed al dam. It means you're allowed to stand idle while he is dying, and not to care about his hazardous situation. If they're discussing they're judging him, and he has something positive to say in his favor, he should not say it. And the one that was learned into Avodah Zarah, you shouldn't have compassion. If he has something to say against him, he should definitely make that case. If he has something to say against him, you should not cover for him, and should not out of love for him, the person that was convinced to serve Avodah Zarah. You're not allowed to enjoy not only from the Avodah Zarah, but also from its plated. Let's say it was gold plated. Which is on them. Not to rebuild a city that served Avodah Zarah altogether, the whole din of Nidachas, not to rebuild it. To build it up the way it was. Not be built. Not to enjoy from its money. And not even a little bit from what was set aside as an X. Shouldn't be used. Not to enjoy from Avodah Zarah in anything that serves it. But to krayvish, let's say their kalim, and to krayvish anything they brought before it to, let's say, so to speak, to feed it, or bayayin or wine that they use as a libation before it. Something that's disgusted. Not to test to prophesize in the name of the Avodah Zarah. Not to say in the Eibishter's name, but something that the Eibishter never commanded falsely. Not to listen to someone that prophesies in the name of Avodah Zarah. Not even to listen to Chavtes. Shloini mana. We should not withhold ourselves. Marikas navi sheker. Kill a false prophet. V'loy nir menu, not to fear. Shnemar loisager mimenu. Lamed loilachas b'chukis avodah not to go in the paths of those that serve idols. V'loy men are going to say, and not in their customs as well. Shnemar v'loiselchu b'chukis hagoy. That means not only in their in serving avodah zarah, but even in their general customs. Lamed aleph shloy liksay, which is they would do certain things, certain tricks, and tell the fortune, tell the future. Which was saying based on astrology or other types of things, saying that this time is appropriate and opportune to use to this thing and to that thing. Is when you see certain things that happen and you say, oh, this cat ran by, that's a symbol that you're going to have this type of day, or you should do or shouldn't do that. More things that were invented by Avodah Zarah. Which is a general azhara against using witchcraft. Which is they would say certain things, and while they were saying these mantras, they would start connecting to different souls. Not to ask. Before we said that you're not allowed to be an oiv, which is they talk through the armpits, etc. And shlo be with the person that had put a bird's aver in his mouth and say the future. Shnamar v'shoyel oiv yidayni. You're not allowed to ask by them either. Shlo lishol b'chaloim. Not to do things that they'll answer you in a cholim, or you'll ask in a cholim. Shnamar v'doyer shalom mesim. Isha, woman's not allowed to put on clothing and decorate herself like a man. The other way around, mem. A man is not allowed to dress himself with a woman's clothes. Why? Says the Rambam, the reason for this is that this is the way they would act. Not to write on our bodies, not to inscribe. You should not make a tattoo, not place in yourself. Is not to wear wool and linen together. Rambam learns, he has his shitta that this is all midin avodah zarah, to wear shatnez, which is wool and linen together. Not to take off the payas, the side locks of the head, like the priest of avodah zarah. Not to take off the entire beard, the 5 points the Rambam is going to mention. Like those that serve avodah zarah, the size of your beard. Not to scratch yourself. Like those serve avodah zarah, either as an evil for a person that died. Srita is by hand and grida is with a kli. Memvav, not to go dwell there in a permanent way. Go back to Mitzvhos. Not go back to that way. Not to go after our heart's thoughts, which tells us about minus of kfira, and achreinechem is referring to znus. Not to cut a treaty between us and the 7 nations that live in the Eretz Yisrael. And the same would apply to any of the avodah zarah. Not to allow anyone to remain alive after they sent the messages and they wanted battle. Many perushim the Rambam gives is not allowed rachmana, so not they shouldn't find favor in your eyes. You shouldn't, which is losses lamchein or chanoy bekarka, shouldn't stay or not to give them gifts. Not to allow them to live in our land, even in a temporary way. Not to marry into those that serve avodah zarah. So from the nations of Ammon and Moab shouldn't marry ever into Bnei Yisrael. They're not allowed to marry a girl. There is only for 3 generations. One should distance and not allow the descendants of Esav to enter Am Yisrael. After 3 generations. Only distance a Mitzri, an Egyptian, from entering Kal Yisrael and converting only after 3 generations. They can marry the daughters. Unlike all other nations, and when we come fight them, so they have to first call out and give them the option of making peace. That's not the case by Ammon and Moab. So not to ruin fruit trees and any other types of ashchas, of ruining things that it could be used. Etc. The people in battle, the soldiers, should not be afraid. Do not be broken and do not fear them. Not to ever forget and take it off our heart the sin that we have to Amalek. Samach. And we're warned not to curse Abish's name, Chas v'Shalom. Not to curse. It says, someone that curses Zaklal, Kol Shana cause of Karis. A Misa of the Torah gave the Knas, the punishment of Karis, or Misa, Haris the Mitzvahs Loisa say it's a negative, it's a prohibition. Chutz Mimilo Pesach, these two Shem Bekaris, Vehem Mitzvah say, and still they're considered Mitzvahs Asay. Samach Aleph, Shloi Lavar al Shavuos Bitui. If you expressly you swore that you're going to do something, or not going to do something, not to transgress. Falsely. In vain. Something that you didn't need to. In vain. Not to desecrate the Eibishter's name. Not to desecrate the Eibishter's holy name. Not to test the Eibishter. After you, this is referring to specifically a Navi, after you know he's a proper Navi, you're not allowed to test him. Samachei, based on Migdash, you're not allowed to ruin either the base of Migdash or any shul, or the Midash's place where they're learning how holes. You're not allowed to erase names of the Eibishter, those who are holy. You're not allowed to destroy holy papers that are written. And their trees to Shruba Eish, and then it says this should not be done to the Eibishter. Samach Vav Shlo Yolin Atzol Al 8 Shenamar Lo Ysolin Ivlosai Al 8. Even if Beis Din killed him, they're not allowed to leave him overnight. In Samach Zayin Shlo Lahash V'Shmin V'Savi L'Migdash Shenamar Shmart Mishmeres HaKodesh, not to stop the guard that's around, that's covered around the Beis Mikdash. Samach Shlo Yikonos Kohen LaHeichel Choleis HaKohen cannot come in anytime he wants into the Heichel. A person that has a blemish, a person the moment that a paisel, he's not allowed to come from the mizbeach and in the fnim lahechel shnemer ach al pareichas lo yava, he's not allowed to come. Ayin shlo yavid balmum, someone that has a blemish is not allowed to serve. Shnemer ashayir balmum lo yikrav. Ayin al shlo yavid balmum over, even if he has a transient mum that's going to pass. Shnemer kol isha shabai mum lo yikrav, he shouldn't come close to, he shouldn't near to serve. Ayin beish lo yisasko alavim ba'avoid zakainim ba'avoid zavim, they shouldn't swap their avoid zavim. Let's say they worked in the sha'arim or singing, and the kainim, they're the ones that serve in the base of Mikdash. They're not allowed to switch avoid. Shnemer al klei kodesh al mizbech lo yikravu v'lo yimusu gam heim gam atan. Ayin gimel shlo yikonos l'migdash v'lo yoyer b'toyra suyai. Both of these should not happen when a person is intoxicated, not to come into the base of Mikdash, and a rav should not pass. Shnemer yaim sheikh al teish b'vayacham al moed u'lohoyer says b'nei Yisrael. So both of them are also when a person had the shear the Rambam is going to mention in the halachas of wine. Ayin daled shlo yavid hazar b'migdash. So a foreigner shouldn't come in. It's not a kohen Levi. It's not a kohen. Shneimar v'lo zar lo yikrav aleichem. Ein heish lo yavid kohen tamei. The kohen if is right now impure. Shneimar lo v'inasu mekachav bnei Yisrael. V'inasu means they should move away. They should stand aloof. Stand off. Ein vav shlo yavid kohen tvul yom, which means after he already completed his days or he already toivled, but he's going to be tamei till the evening. It's called achi ar shimshar until sundown. Shneimar v'lo yichal Hashem alekechem. Even though he went through the first stage of Tara, he's not allowed to come in or serve. Ayin zayin shlo yikonos tamei lazara. Someone that's tamei and impure is not allowed to enter the azara. Shneimar lo yitamas machaneim zeh machne shchina. Shlo yikonos. 1 second. Okay, this is referring to the Ezra's Yisrael and Ezra's Kohen, but not Ezra's Nashim. Ayin ches. Another is that he shouldn't come into also Machna Leviyah, which is including Ezra's Nashim and all the way to the bottom of Harabais. There is Harabais. Shneimar lo yava el toich machna zeh Machna Leviyah. Ayin tesh lo livnas amizbeach gazis. You shouldn't build it with metal. Shneimar lo sibras and gazis. Lama pei shlo yivsoy al mizbeach, not to step on the mizbeach you're not allowed to do it with steps. You're not really sal mizbechi. Pay al shlo l'chabes eish hamizbech, to make sure that the fire does not lash out the one on the mizbech. Shnamar eish tamid, a continuous fire should burn on a mizbech. Lo yisich should not be put out. Pay beis l'hakter b'mizbech hazav, not to put a fire in ketores or be makriv, let's say a behemoth for that matter, on the mizbech hapnimi, which is specifically for ketores. Shnamar lo yisal all of ketores zara. Pay gimel shlo lasis b'matkoyin shemen hamishcha, not to make the same recipe of the shemen hamishcha with the spices that it was made with and the perfume. Shenamar maskon to lo yisasu. Pay dal shlo laso shemen hamishcha zara. Someone that's not a kohen or not a king should not be anointed with that oil. Shenamar al b'sar adam lo yisach, should not be smeared on anyone's flesh. Pay hey shlo lasis b'matkoyin sakteres, not to imitate the recipe of the ketores. Shenamar maskon to lo yisasu lochem. Pay vav shlo lahoitzi bad the aron, not to take out the staff, the poles of the aron. Shenamar lo yisur memenu, should not be taken out of the tabois. Pay zayin lo yizach ha'choishin malo ephod, the choishin, the breastplate should not be taken off the ephod, the shoulder straps of the apron. Shenamar lo yizach ha'choishin malo ephod. Pay ches lo yikara me'il, the me'il, which is the tunic, the blue tunic, should not be ripped. Shenamar kfi sachra yelo lo yikareh, it should have like the there's the armory that the knights had. There were a whole bunch of scales one on another, so that's how they made the armory would go. The me'il came out. It wasn't just an ending to it. They folded over. It's called kfi zachra, and they were not allowed to rip. They had to have this rip. Pay test. Then we're going to dini karbanos. Lo lahaz kachim b'chutz. Now bring karbanos that were consecrated to bring them outside the Beis Hamikdash. Pentala oilasach. Your burnt offerings. Tzaddik shlo lishchad kachim b'chutz. Not even to slaughter them outside. Shnamar ba'al asher yishchad sheret kesef al pesach hayomed lo yivir v'nichras gets cars. Tzaddik al shlo lahagdish b'al mum l'mizbech. Not to consecrate a behemoth that has a mum, has a blemish to the mizbech. Shnamar asher boy mum lo yisakrivu. Zehu Isra, the Isra to be makdish it, to consecrate it b'chlal if it has a mum. Tzaddik beis shlo lishchad b'al mum l'shem karban, not to slaughter if it was already consecrated, to slaughter it l'shem karban. Shnamar lo yisakrivu el Hashem shlo lishchad dam b'al mum l'gabe mizbech, not to sprinkle its blood on the mizbech if it was a b'al mum. Shnamar b'al mum lo yisakrivu Hashem v'zehu Isra zrikas damin, not to sprinkle its blood. Tzaddik dalad shlo lahakte mori b'al mum, not to bring its fat on the mizbech. Shnamar v'isha lo yisit l'mem on the mizbech. Tzaddik hey shlo lahakte b'al mum over, not to offer even a bal mum, which is over. It's going to get better, whatever the mum is, the blemish. And this is referring to Zakh Rambam Zeh mum over, is referring to a mum that passes. Tzadik vav, as long as it has the mum, you're not allowed to bring it. Tzadik vav shlo lahakir bal mum miyad goyim, not to bring, even if goyim bring, for example, animal with a blemish, not to be makar on the zeh. Shnamar miyad benecha lo yisakribu. Tzadik zayin shlo litin mum bekadashim, not to place a mum, not to hurt and make it cause a mum in kachim and consecrating the karbanos. Shnamar kol mum lo yiyah boy, koloymar al titim b'mum, you should not make a mum boy. Tzadik zayin, tzadik ches lo lahakir sa'or, which is leavened yeast, or yidvash, or sweeteners like honey. You should not brought up and smoke on the mizbech. Shlo lahakriv tafel, which means it doesn't have salt on it. Do not withhold the melech, which is the promise, the Eibishter promise, the mayim tachtoinim. Kuf shlo lahakriv esnan or mechir kelev. Esnan is a person that gave a sheep, let's say, as payment for a woman to do avera, or mechir, or znos. Mechir kelev is a person swapped for a dog. He swapped. He said, "Take this sheep. I'll take your dog." That sheep is never allowed to be brought to the mizbeach. Either of these. Shneimar leisavi esnan zayna mechir kelev. Kuf al shlo lishchat oisav es b'nai. Not to shech the mother and the son in the same day. Oisav es b'nai v'lo yisishlu v'yemachad. Kuf beis litin zayis zayis minchas chayta. You should not place oil on the mincha, the meal offering of a person that's sin. Not to put frankincense. Shouldn't be mehudash. Should not place frankincense. This is on a mincha of a sinner. A meal offering. The same din. You should not put oil on the mincha brought by a saita, a woman that her husband suspected her and gave her kinui, and then she was nistera with two edim. We don't know what happened, so she brings the mincha, that meal offering. Also, you don't put oil or frankincense. You should pour on it oil. Frankincense. Frankincense. Not to swap. Let's say if you consecrated a behemoth, not to swap it for a different one. Not to switch it and make tmura. Carbon, not to change, even you're not changing it from animal to animal, rather from a oilo to a chatas, etc. It says by Pchor, what does it say? You shouldn't consecrate it. You can't consecrate it as a different carbon now. Kuf Ches, the Pchor Behema Tahira, which is meant to be brought in the base of Migdash, not to be paid, not to redeem. That should not be redeemed. Kuf Tes, not to sell the 10th one of the behemoth that's meant to be consecrated as meiser, not to sell shnamar lo yigol, should not be redeemed. Kuf yud shlelimkar stay cherem. Not if a person said about a field that it's cherem, which is meant to go to the kohen, he's not allowed to sell it to random person. Shnamar, it says like kol cherem lo yimacher. Kuf yud al shlelivta stay cherem, not to redeem it and to pay it off if he gave it to the kohen. Shnamar lo yigol. Kuf yud beis lo yavdel b'chatas ha'oif. B'chatas ha'oif, he should not separate the head from the body. It's a isur shnamar o malchus roishim imul arpoi v'lo yavdel, which is punkt verkehrt of an oilo. What you do, you are mavdel. Kuf yud gimel shlo labed b'kadashim, not to use the behemoths for your private use. Shnamar lo yisaved b'bchor sharecha, to not use it. You do your own malacha. Kuf yudal shlo ligzes is a kadashim, not to shear the wool off a sheep that was consecrated. Shnamar lo yisagos b'chor tzeinecha. It's written by a Pchor, but it refers to all kachim. Kuf tesvav shlo yishchat pesach v'chametz kayim. Now the shach carbon pesach on erev pesach. If your chametz still exists at home, it still belongs to you. Shnamar lo yishchat al chametz dam zivchi, referring to a carbon pesach. Kuf tesvav. Not to leave the fats until they become invalid because they stayed overnight. It shouldn't remain this fats until the morning. Not to leave from the carbon pesach after the time that you're not allowed to eat it anymore. Chacham or mak them until chatzos, but that's in the start of boiker. And this is referring to a carbon. We know that the pesach was nechal ala soiva, and they would bring a chagigas yudala together with the carbon pesach on erev pesach, in order that they should be able to eat it by the Seder. So that had a limited time, as we're going to see. You're not allowed to leave it till the morning. Now, in Piyah Shmuel, we learned, in Taase that what's the third day? It's talking about the next morning. In Piyah Shmuel, it's the third unique day from the shchita, which is referring because the shchita was done on erev Pesach, so it's considered the first day, then the second day, and then the day afterwards. Kuf yotes you're not allowed to leave till the morning, even from the flesh of the carbon Pesach that's done in Yudal Ir, the Pesach Sheni. Kuf chav which is a carbon toida for the kol hachaim, those that went through chayli yam, etc. And Beis Asurim and Midbar. Shnamar lo yisasirim and ad baiker. But what in the Shar Kadashim, this refers also to all other consecrated karbanos. She'im manichonis and lachas manachilazam. Not allowed to leave it for after the time there, a lot of time to be eaten. Kocha bal shlo lishbar etzem pesach. Not allowed to break a bone in the carbon pesach. I have special people that would cut off the meat to make sure they cut around all the cartilages of the. Shnamar be'etzem lo yisish rubai. Kocha beis lo lishbar etzem pesach sheni. Also by the pesach sheni as well, do not break. Make sure not to break a bone. Shnamar be'etzem lo yish rubai. Kocha of gimos lo hoitzim yipsar pesach v'nachabor, not to take the meat out of the group that's eating the menoyim. Shnamar lo seitzim in abayis. And not to take out of the house. You have to make sure that they remain unleavened. The shiara menachas, the leftovers of any carbon, should not be baked as chametz, even though this remains for the kohanim to eat in any way they want. Kuf chav hey, lo lachal b'sar pesach nam v'osher, not allowed to eat the meat of the carbon pesach when it's raw or cooked in water as opposed to roasted. Shnamar al terchel menu na ubashal mevushal l'mayim. Kuf chavav shlo lahachal b'sar pesach l'ger toisha. Ger toisha, which accepted shef mitzvah nerech, were allowed to leave next home, mitzvah lachiyes, etc., but they're not considered yid and b'shlemus until they're freed. Shnamar ger that's an eved. Sorry, that's an eved knani, but also ger toisha. Shnamar toisha v'sachar lo yoichal boy is not allowed to eat. Kuf chav zayin shlo yoichal ha'orel, a complete yid, but doesn't have a bris. He shouldn't eat tzar pesach. Shnamar v'chol orel lo yoichal boy. Kuf chav ches lo lahachal b'sar pesach, they still shouldn't shtabed not to feed a yid that rebelled against the Yiddishkeit, that doesn't accept a different deity. Shneimar kol ben necher lo yochel bay a goy. Kolomer Yisrael shenivel b'nei necher, a Yid that joined the different nation, or from the get of Avad Avodah Zarah Kamaisa lo yochel, is not allowed to eat from the carbon base. Kuf Taase shlo yochel adam shnit makadashim. Someone that became defiled, he's impure. He shouldn't eat kadashim any carbon. Shneimar ba nefesh shdergal basar mibsar zevach shalom shel Hashem v'tumasay olam, and he is tummy. Kuf lamed shlo lechem and a kadashim shnitu. Now he's tar, but he's eating a kachim that became tummy. If it touched anything that was tummy, it should not be eaten. So lechel noiser, if it stayed there after its time. If he's going to carry his sin if he eats it. He gets cut off. Which is when the kohen shechted it, he had in mind either to sprinkle the blood or to eat it after it's going to be eaten or brought on the mizbech after its time. If you eat pigul, once he invalidated the carbon this way with his thought, then you're not allowed to eat it. Then the person is going to become chayiv kares. Kovlam Gibbos lo yechal zar truma is a person that's not a kohen, is not allowed to eat truma. Shneimar kol zar lo yechal kodesh. Kovlam dal lo yechal afil toishav kohen. Someone that's dwelling by a kohen, he rents by a kohen. A schir, someone that was hired by a kohen to do work. Shneimar, he's not allowed to eat truma. Shneimar toishav kohen v'sachir lo yechal kodesh. Kovlam heish lo yechal oral truma. Someone that's not circumcised shouldn't eat truma. Shneimar in the shakadash from any other carbon. For the davars alim da kasav. Pesach b'gzer shavu lentis b'gzer shavu from a carbon Pesach, but ain't b'feish min Torah. It's not spelled out clearly in Torah. However, in Piyashmol lamdushi isa aral b'kadashim, the isa that are aral, a person that's not gibalit shouldn't eat from consecrated karbanos is migufei Torah. It has a din of a deraisa, but ain't b'derisayim. It's not a derabanan. Kuf lamed vav shlo yochel kohen tamei truma. If a kohen himself is impure, he should not eat. Shomash namar ish mizaracha b'kadashim lo yochel. Kuf lamed zayin shlo toichel chalala kodesh. A woman, either she was born from an improper marriage, a grusha to a kohen, for example, or she was a grusha and she herself married a kohen, she becomes hence a halala, and she's not allowed to eat truma. Truma is the lechaz of a shoik, which is the chest and the thigh of the behema. You're not allowed to give. You would give it to a kohen, she's not allowed to eat. Shneimar bas kohen ki si el ish zar, she goes with a foreign person. He betrumas hakadashim lo yisaychel, she's not allowed to eat. A kohen's meal offering should not be eaten, rather kol takter. Shneimar v'chol minchas kohen, a mincha, meal offering brought by a kohen, kol ti, it completely gets burned on the mizbech, lo yisaychel, should not be eaten. Kovlam Taase shlo lechel b'sar chatois hanas b'fnim, is a chatas pnimi, like a parallel davar shel tzibur or siddur avodah zarah of the entire congregation, that's processed and is sprinkled in the kodesh, that the meat of those karbanas gets burnt outside, like on the power of Yom Kippur, etc. If they became puzzled with a mum, shahuta bahem mum bechavana, intentionally, so you're not allowed to eat it. Shneimar lo yisaychel kol neveya, any abomination. It's referring to a Baal Chaim that was in the Skadish, was consecrated, and person put in a mum. Kuf mem aleph. So lechel ma'aser shenin, which is the second tithing that they would take, every Yid would take in the specific years and bring it up to the Beis Hamikdash. You have to eat it in Yerushalayim. Ma'aser shenin shel dagon. So the first mitzvah, loisa say, is of grain, not to eat it outside Yerushalayim. Kuf mem beis lo lechel ma'aser sheni. The second ma'aser shel tirish, of wine, chutz Yerushalayim. Kuf mem gimel shel lechel ma'aser sheni shel yitzar, which is of oil. Outside Yerushalayim. Remember Yitzarcha. Kufim Dal Shalachal Bchor Tamim. Chutz Yerushalayim, not to eat the Bchor Tamim if it doesn't have a mum outside Yerushalayim. Shneimar Lo Yisucha Lachal Ubechoris. Kufim Heish Lo Yechol Akoinim Chatas VaAsham Chutz LaZara. Kachi Kadashim are not allowed to be eaten chutz LaKlaim outside of the specific places of the specific designated area of the Azara. Not a chatas, sin offerings or guilt offerings. Anything that's eaten outside of the area allotted for its eating, it's that's what it's referring to the term when it says in your own private place, so to speak. Not to eat altogether the meat of a burnt offering that's meant to be burned completely on the mizbech. There's a carbon oil. You're not allowed to eat those that you vowed, and the that you vowed to bring a burnt offering. And this is a warning for any person that uses and it misappropriates something that belongs to Hegdish. You're not allowed to enjoy anything that was consecrated that doesn't also for you to enjoy. That if you do enjoy from it mal, you are moil behegdish. Not to eat meat of kachim kalim. Even though a Baal Bais is allowed to eat, for example, but he's not allowed to eat before they sprinkle the blood. Even you probably can't eat your donation karbanas until the blood is sprinkled. Foreigner that means not a kohen should not eat kachik kadashim. This is like a chatas and asham, etc. Kufmem Tesla is not allowed to eat from the first ripened fruits, the bikurim, before they place it in the azara. They bring it with a whole process to bring it to the corners. Kuf nun, you're not allowed to eat from the second tithing that they brought to Eretz Yisrael. You're not allowed to eat to Yerushalayim. You're not allowed to eat it when a person is impure. Even if he's in the right place, until he redeems it. Shenema, as it says, now this is referring to. 1 second. I think this is that the Ma'aseh Sheni itself became tummy, not that he's tummy. The fact that he's tummy is not that easy. We already said it earlier. Kufnun al shlolachal Ma'aseh Sheni ba'aninos. If a person is an oinen, he's in a situation of tsar because the person, his close relative, wasn't buried yet. Now or the first day. Shnamar lo yichaltem ba'oinen menu. Kufnun beis lohoitzit mei Ma'aseh Sheni b'shar dvarim she'en b'hem achilus. If you swapped it for money and because you want the fruits to go bad and now you bring it to Yerushalayim, you're not allowed to use it for anything and buy anything that's not eating or drinking. And here we teach you anything that's not needed for the person that's alive. I consider that nasati mental mace. Kufnun givos lolechol tevel. What is tevel? It's like the Rambam about tevel. It's a grows from the ground. It itself is mandatory to give trumas of maisis according to the Levi that they did not separate from it the children of the they didn't. That they're meant to take to separate for the Eibishter. You're not allowed to make it chol when it was not yet separated from it. You're not allowed to take away truma. You're not allowed to take truma before you bring the first ripened fruits to the base of Mikdash. You're not allowed to take Ma'aser Rishon, which goes to the Levi, before you take a separate truma. You're not allowed to take Ma'aser Sheni, which the Baal Bais eats in Yerushalayim, before you give the Ma'aser Rishon to the Levi. I'll say there has to be according to it's prescribed order. Bikurim, first Bikurim, Achakach Truma Gdel to the Kohen, Achakach Ma'aser Rishon to the Levi, Achakach Ma'aser Sheni. That you separate, either swap it for money when you're ready to go up to Yerushalayim, and you use it there. Is when it becomes male, which is referring to the bikurim, and dim'acha is the truma. You shouldn't delay it. You shouldn't delay something that was meant to be brought earlier. The vows that a person made, he consecrated something, he promised a specific thing, or he promised on himself that he's going to give that amount to the Eibishter. Both of them, on a davar shenadav, they're going to be a person has to make sure to not to delay it. Not to go up for the Shalosh Regalim without a carbon. Empty-handed. If he vowed not to, or he asked certain things on himself, he's not allowed to transgress his word. Shouldn't make in vain his words. Kufnun Ches, we learn that people that serve in the base of Mikdash, Kohen Zaina. Kohen's not allowed to marry a woman that's a harlot. Shnamar Isha Zaina lo yikachu. Kufnun Tes lo yikach Kohen Chalola, a woman that he's not allowed to marry. Shnamar Chalola lo yikach. She was nischalal. Okay. Either she's not allowed to be married to him, or she becomes a halala, and then another kohen is not allowed to marry her, or she was born from a union that was not allowed for a kohen. Kuf samash laika kohen grusha. Kohen is not allowed to marry a woman that was divorced. She was divorced by her husband. Laika they're not allowed to take. Kuf samachal laika kohen gadol amana. Kohen gadol alone is not allowed to marry a widow. Shnamar amana grusha v'chalal zayna es ela laika. Shloi yival kohen gadol amana afil b'loigir. He's not allowed to be together with almana, even if he's not marrying her first. He will by this act make her a chalala. He shouldn't make he shouldn't invalidate his descendants. The Azhara is, the warning is he's not allowed to make anybody become invalid for a kohen. He's not allowed to come in with wild hair, which means he let his hair grow long. Reshechem al tifro, they're not allowed to grow wild. Kovzam without shlo yikanos kain lo migdash crew abgadam thrift clothing shnamar b'gdeicham lois efraimu. Kovzam chesh lo yetze kain min hazar b'shas havayz, not allowed to leave in the middle of the time of service. Shnamar b'pesach hayamayid lois eitze. Kovzam avav shlo yitama kain head yit l'shar mesim. He's not allowed to become defiled to any other mesim. Shnamar b'nafesh lo yitama ba'amo, as opposed to the close relatives of his that he is allowed to. Kovzam al zayin shlo yitama kain gadol afilu l'krev. The kain gadol is not allowed to become defiled even to the 5 relatives that a regular kain is allowed to. Shnamar lo avi v'lima lo yitama, his father and mother, he's not allowed to become defiled. Kuf samach ches shlo yikanos kain gadol im mace, he's not allowed to enter under one roof. Shnamar bal kol nafshis meis lo yavai kachlam lepias mo shu chayav b'bal yavai u'v'chayav b'bal yitam. There's 2 separate isurim prohibitions. One is to become tamei, and one is to come into that tent. Shelo yikach kol shevet levi chelik ba'aretz. Shevet Levi is not allowed to inherit a place in the land, rather the Arei Levim, they'll give them. V'nachal lo yiloi. Kof ayin shlo yikach kol shevet Levi chelik ba'biza, and the booty b'shas kibush ha'aretz, when they conquer the land, they're not allowed to take their part in what they, in the sholol, in the booty that they conquered, that they took back. Shnamar lo yil koinen halavim, etc. Chav kof ayin alish lo lasses karchal ames. They rip out hair in between their eyes for a person that died. Shnamar lo yisasimu karchal bein anechem. One's not allowed to do it between their eyes. Kof ayin beis. Now we're going to learn dinei isra achila. Shlo lachal behema tmei, behema that's not tamei behema, not a kosher one. Shnamar chazel azet toichlu mimale ageir, from those that chew their cut. Kof ayin gimel shlo lachal dog tamei, a fish that's not kosher. Shnamar v'sheket ziyol lechem, should be despised by you. Mipsam l'techil, not to eat their meat. Kof ayin dalas shlo lachal oif tamei, a bird that's not kosher. Shnamar lo azel shaketzu, you should despise me. Oif lo yachil shouldn't be eaten. Kofayin heish lo lachal sheretz ha'oif. Sheretz ha'oif is like flies, zuvim, yutushim, like mosquitoes, etc. Shnamar v'chol sheretz ha'oif tamei ulachem lo yachil. They also crawl on the ground. They're not like birds. Kuf ayin vav shlo lachal sheretz ha'aretz, which is like a little like a weasel, rat, or a centipede. Shnamar v'chol sheretz ha'aretz sheketz ulachem lo yachil lo lachal remes ha'aretz, which is the types of worms that grow in the garbage or whatever it is. Shnamar leisitamos nafshesechem b'chol sheretz haremes, that swarms on the earth. Shlo lachal talas aperes, not to eat the ones that come out of the fruit. That be'etzem ksheteitz la'aver, it becomes also when it goes out to the ear of the world. It means it leaves the fruit. Shnamar chol sheretz hasheretz al aretz lo yisechlum, once it reaches ala aretz, it goes towards the earth. Kofayin teslo lachal sheretz hamayim, which are these are like crabs, etc. Shnamar al teshaktu es nafshesechem b'chol sheretz hasheretz. Shlo lachal mesa, not to eat a nevela, which means a behemoth that died on its own. Shnamar lo yisechlum b'chol nevela. Shlo lachal treifa, which it was kosher but it wasn't shechted properly. Shnamar basa b'sada treifa lo yisechel. Treifa literally means that it was pounced on by an animal, but it became treif, punctured its lungs, etc. Shlo lachal eber min achai, to eat a limb taken off a live animal. Shnamar lo yisechel anefesh im habasar. You're not to eat the meat when the soul is still connected to it. Kuf pei gimel shlo lachal gida nasha by the thigh. Shnamar al kein lo yichlu b'nei Yisrael gida nasha. Kuf pei dalid shlo lachal dam, not to drink blood. Shnamar chol dam leisachel. Kuf pei hei shlo lachal chelav, the specific fats that are considered chelav. Shnamar kol chelav shor b'kesa ba'ez, of a ox, a lamb, and a goat. Lo yisechel shouldn't be eaten. Kuf pei vav shlo levashal basa b'chalav, not to cook meat and milk and meat together. Not to eat if it was cooked together. The second time, the second one teaches you not allowed to eat. So if the ox that was meant to be niskal is meant to be stoned because it's gore to kill a person, let's say, you're not allowed to eat his flesh, even if he wasn't stoned. Actually, he was just passing his din, and then someone ran and shechted it. You're not allowed to eat meat. So that's about now. Not allowed to eat bread that's made from the new crop of wheat. Before Pesach, and that's before they bring the carbon oimer. That's why you always say gebak nach Pesach. Kuf tzadik. Koli is they would roast the kernels and then grind them. From the new crop. Kuf tzadik al caramel. Caramel is a soft green, Yeah, shibolim, like stalks that are fresh. Mitzvah chadash from the new before they bring the karbanaimer. Shnamar v'karmel loy seichlo. Kov tzadik beish lo lachol arlo within the first 3 years of a tree. Shnamar shol shanim yelochem arelim. It's supposed to be closed lo yachol. It's not allowed to be eaten. Kov tzadik gimel. So lachol kilei akerem, which is when in a vineyard it grew also. Grain, etc. Shnamar b'digdash amaleya hazar shetizral tuvos akaram. Mazehu isur achili. You're not allowed to eat it. Kuf tzadik dalis lelishas yain a wine that was used as libation. Shnamar ashachel v'chema yachelu yishtu yain nesichim, again that they were poured in front of our zar. Shloi lachav v'lishas der zayl. One is not allowed to eat in a way of gobbling and drinking. Shnamar l'bnei nozeh, by the ben Sarim, our son is a zayl v'seiva. He drinks and he eats, gobbles. Shloi lachal b'yem atzayim, not to eat on Yom Kippur. Shnamar kechol nefesh shaloi se'una b'nichlasah, if he doesn't pain himself. Kuf tzadik zayin shloi lachal chametz b'pesach, not to eat chametz on Pesach. Shnamar lo yachal chametz. Kuf tzadik chesh shloi lachal taroivus chametz, even something that chametz is mixed into. Shnamar kol machmetz is anything that is leaven lo yisachel you shouldn't eat. Kuf tzadik tesh shloi lachal chametz achar chatzayim, after chatzayis arbas of the 14th of Nisan. Shnamar lo yisachel olav chametz. Shlo yiroeh chametz, shouldn't be seen if it belongs to you. Lo yiroeh lecha chametz. Lo yimatzav chametz, shouldn't be found in your possession if it belongs to you. Shnamar sar lo yimatzav l'teicha. Even if you don't see it, even if it's in a different city, it's in your possession, belongs to you. Reish beish lo yishta nazir yain, someone accepted Nazir is not allowed to drink wine. V'lo davar shin sarba yain, or even something that was mixed in wine. But tama kedama yain, it has the tam wine. Shnamar v'chol mishras anavim, anything that was soaked with olives, with the grapes. Sorry. And even if the wine went sour, became vinegar, or davarshins arba yain, or it's a mixture, it has a little bit of wine, hareza asov, it's asov from shnamar chayim yain, but chayim is sheikhar, which is stronger wine, and lo yishta, he's not allowed to drink. Reish gimel lo yochal anavim lachem, wet grapes. Shnamar anavim lachem lo yochal. Shlo yochal anavim yibeshim, also dry grapes like raisins. Shnamar yibeshim lo yochal. Shlo yochal chartzanim, which is the pits. Shnamar chartzanim lo yochal. Shlo yochal zagin, which is the peels. Shnamar vad zog lo yochal. Shlo yitama naz lemesi, is not allowed to become defiled to a corpse, a dead body. Shnamar lo avil lo yitama lahem b'moisam. Shlo yikonos b'amesi, he has another issue not to enter a tent which will defile him. Shnamar of a mace. Shnamar al nefesh mace lo yaver. Reish tesh lo yigalech another, he shouldn't shave his hair. Shnamar lo tar lo yaver al roshei. Now we're going to talk about din that are between Benam l'chaberoi. Shloi likter kol asada, not to harvest the entire field, rather to leave part on the pay on the side. Don't take off the side parts. Not to gather those that fall while you're harvesting. Which are the ones that barely have, they don't have the whole netef and katif, so that you shouldn't harvest them. You should leave them for the anish. Reshit gimel shaloi lilkait peret akerem, which are the single grapes that fall. Shnamar peret karma chaloi salakit. Reshit dalet shaloi likach oimer hashikha, not to take back a bundle that you forgot in the field. Shnamar loy sashal lekach, not go back to take it. V'chein lekol ilanish yes shikha. Shnamar lisfar acharecha. It's not just bundles of grain, but it's also trees. Reish tesvav shlo yizraya kil yizrayim, not to plant kilayim. Shnamar, which is like a vineyard together with the other seeds of grain, for example. Shnamar self-lo is kilayim, which types. Reish tes zayin shlo yizraya tvua or yarek b'karim, not to plant grain or vegetables in a vineyard. Not to bring together, to cohabit a behema with a different animal that's not its type. Not to crossbreed. Not to do work with two types of behemoths together. You shouldn't plow with a donkey and an ox together. Not to stop it from eating in time of its work. If it's eating and enjoying while it's doing its work. While it's plowing. Reish Chaf, not to work the land in the 7th year of Shemitah. Reish Chaf al ilon b'shvis, not to work with the trees. You shouldn't take off the svichim which they grow on their own. You shouldn't cut them just like you do for regular. Only what you need for yourself. You shouldn't gather the fruit of the trees in the 7th year like you would do for your on regular years. And Reish Chavdal, Shalei Lavid B'Shnas Yovel Bein Adama Bein Ilin. You shouldn't work not with the earth and not with a tree. Shneimar Lo Yisrael should not be planted. Reish Chavhei Shalei Likta Svichi Yovel Kishar Shalom Yovel, which is the 50th year. The year after the 49th, which is the 7th Shemitah. The next year also has the dinim of Shemitah. So also that year is a special Isser not to cut the Svichim as you would do in any other year. The vegetables, let's say, they grow on their own. Shneimar Lo Yisrael Svicha Reish Chavav Shalei Lasav Peiros Yovel Kasiv Shashan, not to gather the fruits of Yovel as you do in all the other years. Rather, it has din like Shemitah. Shneimar Lo Yisrael Nizira Reish Chav Zayin Shalei Limkar Sada Beretz Yisrael. It's mitzvah. Do not sell a property of land in Eretz Yisrael forever. Shneimar Ba'aretz L'Timachal. It's mitzvah. It cannot be sold completely forever. That can be that's irreversible. Reish Chav Ches Lo Shanas Migrash Alvim was the same. Not to make change in the Migrash Alvim and their fields that are given to the Levim, which is the cities. It's 3,000 amas that are around the Ari Levim. That's called the Migrash Alvim and their cities. And their fields. It should not be changed. Not to forget the Levim, rather to give them their on Yom Tov, to give them their matanas. To have them rejoice in every Yom Tov. Not to demand a loan once Shemitah passed, because the Shemitah annuls the loans. Not to oppress his friend. Reish Lamed Aleph. A person should not withhold and hold himself back of not giving to an ani because he doesn't want to come to Shemitah and it's gonna annul the loan. Anytime the Torah uses any of these three expressions of Yishamer, guard yourself, or pen, lest you do, or I'll do not. This is referring to a prohibition of mitzvahs. Not to withhold and not give an ani, a poor man, what you should be giving him tzedakah. Do not close, clench your heart. Close names that are nice and tzedakah. If a person does give tzedakah, gives charity, he's doing a positive mitzvah. If he looks away, turns a blind eye to tzedakah, in addition to the fact that he missed a mitzvah, say a positive mitzvah, transgressed a prohibition. Reish Lamed Gimel Shaleach Eved Ivria, Yiddish slave Rekam, to send him empty-handed when he completes his term at 6 years. You're not allowed to demand the loan when you know the person is poor, he doesn't have what to pay, and do not oppress him. You shouldn't press him, like a loan shark. Not to lend money with interest, which is like a bite, that it grows. Not to borrow. It's to borrow with interest. It's a hazara for the one borrowing. They shouldn't cause the malva to be over on biting him, so to speak. You shouldn't even join hands. That means you shouldn't give a hand towards that and be a aid. Aid. You're not allowed to be a co-signer. Or aid to testify on a star. But you're not allowed to be the one to write the star if it's a loan that's being given with interest. Not to delay payment for a worker. Not to take collateral forcefully. To take his mashkin. Not to withhold it when he needs it. You do not sleep with his mashkin. His mashkin is by you. You give it back at night because he needs it at night. Not to take collateral from almana. Not allowed to take rechaim, which is they would grind food with these small little grinders. Shenamar lo yachbol rechaim barachav. Reishmam gimel shlo lignav nefesh v'yisol, not to kidnap. Shenamar lo signav zeh goynav nefesh. This is referring to a person that kidnaps. Reishmam dal shlo lignav mammon, not to steal money. Shenamar lo signavu zug nevas mammon. Reishmam hein shlo ligzo. Shenamar lo sigzo, which is in broad daylight. Reishmam vav shlo lahasig gvulos, not to change the boundaries of your field to extend and make your property bigger on his expense. And not to be misapech to your, to say it's yours. Not to be goes the moment, even not to steal money that rightfully belongs to your friend. Allah Reishma Mches. Lo L'chachesh b'momena chaveira. Do not deny money that belongs to your friends. Shenamar lo l'chach. Let's say if you're guarding it. Shlo l'shabal kfiras mom chaveira is an issur to swear falsely if you're denying money that does belong to your friend. You say it doesn't belong to him. Shenamar lo l'shakru. Do not lie. Klamar l'shabal sheker b'mom shesh l'chaveircha biyadcha that your friend has in your hands. Shlo yoina b'mekach u'memkar. Do not trick with buying and selling. Shenamar al toinu ish as achid. More than a shtus. Reish and Aleph. Close the door. Reish and Aleph. Lo yoina b'dvarim. Do not oppress with words. It's tricking a person and saying things that will, again, it's embarrassing. Lohoinus is a ger b'dvarim. Is a specific issue not to do that to a convert. The same anas mamain applies as a specific issue also for a convert. So do not return an Eved if he escaped Eretz Yisrael, not to return him to his previous master. Not to oppress this slave with even words. He should dwell between you in a good way. Not to pain on the Yasam Almana. Not to use an Eved Ivri, a Yiddish slave, as you do to a Goyish slave. Not to take your kale in the base of merchat, it's an embarrassing job, or take off your shoes, or sell him like a slave. So, this is the next one. Not allowed to stand him on the stone on which people would bid, like you would sell any other slave. Not allowed to have him work hard. Not allowed to allow a goy to take an Eved Ivri and work him too hard. If you see, once you bought a Jewish maidservant, you're not allowed to resell it to someone else. Rather, he has to either marry her or marry her off to his son, or help her finish her term. If you did marry her, appoint her for yourself, or your son, it's like regular kedushin. It's called yud because the kesef that you paid to buy her, that's considered kesef kedusha. So once you were miyad her, you have to make sure you give her she'er, which is her food, and ksus her clothing, oina, the specific times for being together. This then applies to all women, not just for this yeudah, just like any other wife. You're not allowed to sell an eshes yifas that he brought back and that he conquered from a place that he conquered. He brought back in slave. You're not allowed to enslave her. You're not allowed to use her as a maidservant. You have to marry her. After she accepts her. Not to be jealous, wanting someone. Want something that belongs to someone else and do something to get it. Not even to want in your heart without doing something to get it. He's not allowed to eat not while it's not the end of the process of whatever he's working with, the fruit that he's working with. He's allowed to eat, but he's not allowed to take together with him. This is the next one. More than he needs to take home. Do not put into your bags. The first one is you're not allowed to eat shalei b'shas gemara malacha. If it's not ready to eat, you're not allowed to eat when it's not ripe. Not to turn a blind eye for a lost object, you don't want to give it back. If you see a behema that's collapsing under its load, you're not allowed to allow it to just stay there. Rather, you have to help it up. Now, in between people of justice, not to swindle, not to cheat with measurements, with weights. With the judgment of measurements. It's like he's doing a judgment when he's the cash register and he's weighing in how much each thing weighs. Which are the measurement, like the measurement cups that are not the real amount, are even va'even, stones that are not really proper, that it says a different measurement than what it really is. Not only you're not allowed to use it, you're not allowed to have it in your house. Not to make crooked the just, the entire, you're not allowed to cheat This is for Dayanim. Shenemar lo yisaso avu mishpat. Reish ayin dalet shlo likach sheicha, not to take bribes. Shenemar lo sheicha lo yisikach. Reish ayin hey shlo lechabed gadol badin, not to be mechabed one of the people that are coming to get to the case. You're not to be mechabed a greater one. Not allowed to sway the judgment in his direction. He shouldn't get offended. Person, he shouldn't fear a bad person, a forceful person while he's judging. Not be afraid of anyone. Don't have now compassion for a poor person and say, well, let's make him win the court case so that the rich guy should give him money. Let us help him anyways. Now, if you know he's a bad person, wicked person, this guy deserves malchus, he's potter in this case, let's get a malchus anyways, because I know he does other things, you're not allowed to do that. Teaches us, it's talking about Evion b'mitzvhos. He's a bad person, but he's a wicked person with Averis, but you're not allowed to change the rightful din. Not to have compassion and to let go of certain punishments. If a person got a knas, for example, let's say his behema gored, there's a tam or mood, etc., or fata, and fata. Reish peish lo lahatas mishpat ger v'yisaimim, even gerim v'yisaimim, even a convert or a orphan, tilt their mishpat because you want to have rachman. Shnamar leisata mishpat ger yasim. Reish pei al shlo lishma me'echad me'balei dinim bein chaverim. You're not allowed to hear one side when the second side is not together. You're not allowed to listen. Shnamar leisishma shema shav. Empty words, so to speak. You can't just sway and paskin based on the majority by din and fashis by capital punishment. There's only one tilting, that's the majority. It's only if there's two extra that sway to one side. To kill. By Mechayvim specifically. If someone claimed chayva against the person, he wants to hold him guilty, he's not allowed to, if someone came to exonerate him, he said that he says that his person is not guilty, he's not allowed to change his argument in middle of the process, only at the end. You're not allowed to appoint someone that's not a chacham, or didn't tell you, even though in other wisdoms he's great, but he doesn't know tell you, you're not allowed to appoint him. Shnamar, Loisakiru Pan Bamishpat, Reish Pei Heish, Loid B'Sheker, not to testify falsely. Shnamar, Loisana Berecha, Eid Shaker, Reish Pei Vosh, Loyoid Balavera, not to testify, someone that does sinners, not allowed to testify. Shnamar, Altashas Yadchem, Imrashali is Eid Chamas, Reish Pei Zayin, Loyoid Korib, close relative is not allowed to testify. Yumsu always al banim. What does it mean that the father shouldn't be killed through sons? Yumsu always be'edus banim, not through testimony given through their son. This applies to any close relative. Not to paskin just according to one age. That should not be a deciding factor until you have two edim. Reish pei test. Someone that's chazaka is not guilty. Shenamar leisirtzach. Not kill. Reish tzadik shalachtas adin ba'im. That's based on assumption. Achi yershnei edim gofer shadavar until the two edim see exactly what happened. Shnamar v'naki v'tzadik al tarik. Do not kill a person that's righteous. Reish tzadik aleph. Shlo yoyda badin ha'ed badin shehed badin nefashas. Aid, someone that testified, is not allowed to become a dayan in a case of din nefashas. Shnamar ve'ed lo yana b'nefesh. He shouldn't be the one to respond to the side lemaisa as a dayan. Reish tzadik beish lo larim chuliv hariga koydem she'al badin. You're not allowed to kill a person before he stands by the din teirush and the basin passing that. Shnamar lo yamas oritzech ad am d'fnei eda. Reish tzadik gemas lo lachos al roida. Do not have compassion for the person that's chasing. When the person that's chasing wants to kill someone, you kill the person that's chasing, or the person that wants to, you kill him, and before he gets a chance either to kill or to rape, etc. Do not have rachmanis. Not to punish someone that was coerced to do something wrong when she was raped. Not to take something he wants to give you instead of killing him, he'll pay himself out. No, you don't take such bails. You can't take payment instead of him going to the Ir Miklotish. He has to go to the city of refuge. If you can procrastinate when you could save a person's life. Which is you're not allowed to put things that are a sakana for other people. Do not cause bloodshed in your house. Not to, and it's like lifting every relationship to Mishal, right? You're not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of some person, in front of a person that doesn't see, and that's also with the Eitzara. Shin, someone that gets lashed, you're not allowed to add to the amount that that was decided for him. Yosef and Pen Yosef. Not to go around and talk rechilus, gossip. To go from place to place. Not to hate in the heart. Rather, you have to go and say, why did you do this and this to me? You have to verbalize it. Shin Gimel, not to embarrass any Yid. Do not cause him to sin by embarrassing him. Shin Dalish, not to take revenge. Not to guard, to hold on to the hate and say, I'm going to do you the favor because I'm not like you. Not to take the mother when the son, not to take the chicks or the eggs when the mother is still there. When the sons are there. A person has a nigi roish, a negatras on his head. We'll discuss exactly the way it happens, but he's not allowed to pluck out those hairs. Which is on the rest of his body. If he has leprosy, there's two white hairs inside. He's not allowed to pull it out. Now, shin test, which is the place where they process the egla rufa. It's strong ground, and then there's water near them. It should not be planted. Shin Yud, throughout his Shana, his first year, he does not need to do anything that all the public needs to do for the public needs. To go out to the army, guarding, patrolling on the wall. Not nothing else. Shin Yud, not to allow a witchcraft to a person or a witch to continue doing his which is to do against what based in passage not to veer from what they say. Not to add to any mitzvah, whether it's the written Torah or the Torah Shabbat Peh, the oral Torah Shnemar, as a davar sha'anoich mitzvah oisei tishmun lasa, should guard to do exactly. Do not add. Not to take away, diminish. Not to curse a judge. Which is like the Rosh Sanhedrin. Melech is either a king or Rosh Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael, the leading figure in the Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael. Shenamar v'nasi b'am chol Yisar. Shin Yudzayin shlo lekalel Adam mishar Yisrael, not to curse any Yid. Shenamar lekal chedesh. Shin Yudches shlo lekal avayim, not to curse a parent, a father or mother. Shenamar lekal avayim. Ma'asyomos. Shin Yudches shlo lehakers avayim, not to hate a father or mother. Shenamar maka avayim. Ma'asyomos. Shin Chaf. Which is the name of Yom Tiv. Not to do work on Shabbos. Not to leave the Tchum on Shabbos. The Beis Din shouldn't paskin dinim to give a Piskadin like Mrs. Bezin on Shabbos. Namar v'leisavaro eis b'chol moshe sechem shinchav gimel shalas is malacha b'rishon shel Pesach, the first day of Pesach is a malacha. Shnamar kol malacha le'yasa b'hem shalas malacha b'shvi shel Pesach, which is also proclaimed as a Yom Tiv. So we also not do malacha. Shnamar kol malacha le'yasa b'hem shinchav heish le'las is malacha b'chag Shavuos. Shnamar boy kol malacha zavad le'sasa shinchav vash le'las malacha b'echad l'chad shashvi. This is Rosh Hashanah. Shnamar boy, it says kol malacha zavad le'sasa shinchav zayin le'las is malacha b'yom kippurim on here. Shnamar kol malacha le'sasa le'las malacha Berishan Shachag on the first day of Sukkot. Shnamar Kol Malachas Avodah Lo Yisasa Shaloi Shin Chavtesh Shaloi Lasas Malacha by Yom Hashmini Shachag on Shmini Atzeres Yom Hashmini Shachag of Sukkot. Shnamar Kol Malachas Avodah Lo Yisasa Shaloi Legalas Eres, aim not to uncover the nakedness, not to be together with her mother. Shnamar Imcha He Lo Yisagal Ervasa Shin Lamed Al Shaloi Legalas Eres Ashes of his stepmother, father's wife, new wife. His sister to be together with him. His sister either from his one of his parents, his father or his mother. The daughter of the wife of your father, or that your father gave birth to with a different woman, it's your sister. Or something to not uncover her nakedness. Shin lamadal so the gal is ervas bas habein, the daughter, your granddaughter, through a son. Shnamar ervas bas bidcha. Shin lamed heish the gal is ervas bas habas, your granddaughter from a daughter. Shnamar bas bidcha the gal rasan. Shin lamed vash the gal is ervas habas, your daughter. Even in Velamol in the Parsha B'Torah, it wasn't spelled out clearly. We know this. Also bas habas. She's also going to bas because it asked his granddaughter for sure. It didn't need to spell out that his daughter also. She is her bas migufa terkisha arayis. It has a din like all the arayis, and it's as if it's written clear in Torah. And Rambam considers it a mitzvah loisa say min Torah. Shin lamed zayin shel the guys as ervas isha obita, a woman and her daughter. Not married both. Shin lamed ervas isha obita leizgala. Shin lamed ches shel the guys ervas isha ubas bna, and her granddaughter through a son. Shin lamed isha ubas es bas bna. So the Garas Ervas Isha or Bas Bita, you're not allowed to marry a woman and her granddaughter through her daughter. Shinamar Bas Bita, Loisikach. Shin Mem Shaloi Legalis Ervas Achois of your aunt, your father's sister. Shinamar Achois Ervas Achois Avicha Loisigala. Shin Mem Al Shaloi Legalis Ervas Achois Aim, your aunt, your mother's sister. Shinamar Ervas Achois Aim Loisigala. Shin Mem Beis. Shaloi Garas Ervas Eishas Achi of your aunt, that means your father's brother's wife. Shinamar Alisha Loisikov Dedas is your aunt. Shin Mem Gimel Shal Galas Ervas Eishas Haben, your daughter-in-law. Shinamar Ervas Galas Loisgala. Shin Mem Dalis Shal Galas Ervas Eishas Och, your sister-in-law, your brother's wife. Shinamar Ervas Eishas Achicha Loisgala. Lil Galas Ervas Achois Isha, your sister-in-law, your wife's sister. Shinamar Be Isha Lachois Loisikach. Shin Mem Vav Shal Galas Ervas Nida, not to be together with a woman when in time of menstrual flow. Shinamar El Isha Benidas Tumasa Loisikach. Shin Mem Zayin Shal Galas Ervas Eishas Isha, not to be together with any married woman. Shinamar Vel Eishas Amitcha, your friend's wife. Loisit and Shchav Chalazara, to be together to lie in a way of having children. Shimem Chesla Lishkam Behema, not to be lie with a behema. Shnemar Bechol Behema Loisit and Shchav Chalatama. Shimem Tesla Istabi Isha Behema La. Woman's not allowed to bring a behema over her. Shnemar Isha Loisamar Fnei Behema Leriva. Shin Non Shaloi Lishkam and Zachar, not to be together another male. Shnemar Bes Zachar Loisishkam. Shinun Aleph, Shaloi Legalis Ervas of Atzmai, not to uncover his father's nakedness. Shinamar Ervas Avicha Lois Legal, to be together with him. Shinun Beis Legalis Ervas Achiha of Atzmai, you're not allowed to be together with your uncle. Shinamar Ervas Achiha Avicha Lois Legala. Shinun Gemos Likra Velaroyis B'Dvarim Hambim Degilar. You're not allowed to do things that will bring a person to be frivolous and closer to Arayis. Chibuk Nishuk, to hug, to kiss, or even to hint, or to wink, or kfitza, and to jump in a way that person understands you want to have a relation with them. Shenamar al kol she'er sorry, any close relative like sikru, they're not near the galas haba to uncover their nakedness. These are things that bring a person close to Arayas. Shinon dal shleisa mamzer bas Yisrael, a mamzer that was born from a mamzer is a person that was born. He's not from the Arayas because he's born from Arayas. Besides from a nida, he has dinner of mamzer, and he's not allowed to marry a regular bas Yisrael. Shnamar leyav mamzer bekal Hashem shleitia kedesha. What is a kedesha? She involves a woman that's designated for znus, that she gets married or she's together with people without a ksuva. Shnamar leisia kedesha. Shleiyachar megash grishasa hachshanis lacher. You're not allowed to bring back a woman that you divorced after she married already someone else, even if he divorced her. Shnamar leyuchal ba'al rishon l'shilchal l'shuv l'kachta, so can't take her back. Shinon zayin. A woman that her husband died without children, she's only allowed to marry his brother until he marries her, gives her chalitza. A man that raped a woman, he's not allowed to divorce her. If he spread bad rumors about her, that she was after Eirus and she was together with someone and he was found to be lying, so he has to marry and she has to remain by him his entire life. Person that doesn't have a varim, he can't give birth. He's not allowed to marry a regular yidina. Shenamar lo yav b'tzodaka. Shin samachal the iser shlo l'sara zachar v'kol minim like adam lo behem chayva oif. You're not allowed to cause any a person or behem chayva oif that they can't have shouldn't be able to have children. Now the din is connected to a king. Shin samaveish lo l'manos al yisrael ish mikal game. You're not allowed to appoint as a king someone that's a ger, a convert. Shenamar l'such alecha loses alecha ish nachri. You can't place upon you nisht yid. And here it's referring to also if he converted. Shin samach gimel the iser for a king shlo yabel amel susim, more than he needs for his army is allowed, but not for his chariot. Only what he needs for one horse for his chariot. Shnemar lo yabel susim shlo yabel amel nashim. You can't have many wives more than 18. Shnemar lo yabel nashim, and Shin Samachesh Layabale Kesef Azav Shinamar Kesef Azav Layabale Ma'od for his own possession, not for the reserves for the entire country. Elohim Sheish Moiser Shlosh Mitzvah 613 Mitzvah Shinamar Moshe Sinai, given the Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai. Hein Kol Sein and the same Dikdukim, they were given their generalities and their details and all the Dikdukim. Cholos not close up brothers about Dikdukim, Rabbi Yonah Shekol Mitzvah, all the details. He tells you about exactly how to perform them and the explanations. That's considered the oral Torah. Give a basin, the basin. They received one basin from another, as we explained the shtalshus earlier. Now we're going to talk about mitzvahs derabbanan. They were brought and they were nischadish after Matan Torah. Kavos and Nevi'im Chachamim, whether they were the prophets or Chachamim that established them, so they were accepted everywhere. Going, for example, Mikra Megillah, reading the Megillah on Purim, V'ner Chanukah on Chanukah to light the menorah, V'tainis, certain Taniyas derabbanan, and Tisha B'Av after the Churban B'Yadayim, and the fact they have to wash before eating the Shnias L'Tumah, and Erevin, which is the three types of Erev, Erev Tavshilin for Yom Tif, and Erev Chatzeres, to be able to carry from one to another, and Erev Tchumen, to be able to pass the Tchum if you put an Erev there. The Yesh L'Kol Mitzvah Me'elu Pirushim, the Gdum has many explanations and details. V'Hakol Yizbar B'Chi B'Zeh, we're going to explain everything. Kol Elu Mitzvah Shenischadshu Chayavan Al L'Kabel L'Shamrom. All these mitzvahs that were that were nude after Matan Torah, still we have to be mekabel them and accept them and guard them. Shneimar Lo Yisasem Kol Adavar the Chacham gave us. Ve'edem Tosefes Al Mitzvah Torah. They're not in addition to the Mitzvah Torah. V'Ebazei V'Amai is here Torah Lo Yisasem Lo Yisigra. Well, what does it mean when the Torah said do not add mitzvahs and do not diminish from them? Navi is not allowed to be mechadish, invent something. Learn the mitzvah. He's not allowed to add and say the Eivisha told me to add this to mitzvah Torah. He's allowed to say that it's a mitzvah derabbanan. The Beis Paskins to diminish and say this mitzvah is not a mitzvah from the Eivisha. If a Beis Din, a court, a Navi, together with a prophet, the Navi, mitzvah derech takana, either they did it even to establish, let's say, to put a safeguard before Yidden, derech hara, a directive, or derech zera as a decree on the Yidden because there was mizalzel on something. Ain't it Tosefes is not considered an addition. They never said that Eivish said you have to do an Erev or Likras Megillah by us to read the Megillah in its appropriate time. If they would say that would be adding to the Torah. What we are actually saying is Shanavim im based in Tzibu Tiknu Tzibu. They established and commanded Likras Megillah by us in its time. Remember his praises. Now we say this by Yakarav Shabbeinu is close to saving us. To bless him and to praise him, or to notify that in future generations that it's true what the Torah told us and promised us. Who's this great nation? That he has God so close to him, like the Eibishter, our God. Whenever we call out to him, he called mitzvah. These are older drugs, bein Taase, bein Taase, whether it's a positive mitzvah or a prohibition.